Hello, welcome back to the Peaceful Creatives podcast. This episode is actually the 100th episode of this podcast. So I wanted to do something a little bit special and talk through 10 lessons that I have learned throughout the time of running my business that have helped keep me really peaceful without sacrificing the success that I'm looking for. I am so grateful to everyone who has listened to this podcast in every single format it has been in. It has had a couple of rebrands over the years that I've been running it. And now that I am entering this era of creating videos and posting on YouTube, I hope this feels like an exciting inclusion to have in the podcast. And I really wanted to record this one because I feel like some of the lessons that I have picked up along the way have been some of the most impactful things in my business. They've been some of the things that have helped switch my mindset to feel really good, really calm, really steady inside the business. They have been things that have switched the way that I work inside the business to actually work in a way that looks after myself a lot more. And I guess they've also been things that have really impacted and improved the success that I have experienced in my business as well. And each of them have been things that probably didn't click straight away. They have been things that I've got used to over the years. They've been things that I've had to learn more and more as I go. And ultimately, they have been the pieces, the lessons that have shaped who I am as a business owner, who I am as a creative, and now who I am as a mentor as well. If any of you know me, you will know that there is nothing I love more than to deep dive the way that I feel. That's actually something that's going to come into one of the lessons. And I think it's really, really important to acknowledge and process and really kind of let marinate the feelings that we have in our businesses. Mindset is such an incredible part, and confidence is such an incredible part of what we do as business owners. And often it's the lessons that we learn along the way that help boost our confidence, even experience our confidence, and build that into a business that can grow, that can be steady, that can be more sustainable, and ultimately more peaceful because of all of that above. The lessons that have helped me prioritize peace in my business are always the lessons that also help me build more success, reach my goals, get to where I want to be. And really that is why I do what I do. That's why I talk about building a peaceful business. That's why all my strategies focus on peace. And that's why I really want to prioritize myself in the business as well. So I'm gonna look at my phone for these lessons because I cannot remember what I was gonna say, and I'm not currently sat in front of my computer. So I'm gonna start with the first one, which is, if I can't work my best, my business can't work at its best either. This one was really important when I was in the depths of burnout, of stress, of just really feeling off inside my business. I started my business, I built my business for more flexibility, for more space, to do the things I love, yes, but also to work for me as a person. And so when things stopped feeling calm, which, if I'm honest, was immediately the second I took my business full time, it started to feel really stressful. It started to get on top of me. I couldn't enjoy doing the work that I love to do like I could when it was a hobby, when it was something that I did alongside my job. And I slowly realised that the more I wore myself down, the more I worked myself too hard, the more I focused on the business as the main priority, and the work and the clients and all of the stuff that goes into that as the priority before myself. That is when I experienced that the business at its core was struggling the most. And over time, I got to realise that the whole point of that is because I am essentially the business. I have always wanted to run my business on my own. I have kind of gone into different business models over the years, but ultimately what I've found is I like to be in control of my business as the owner, as the creative director, as the creative behind the scenes as well, and not necessarily build a business that is a sort of empire, but more be my dream job myself, which really means that me as the creative in that business needs to be almost an asset in the business and be part of what makes the business great. And what I really found was the more I could look after myself, the more I prioritised my health, my well-being, my happiness, the more I could pour that energy back into the business and create something that felt joyful all around. Because it was joyful in the work, allowed me to experience like the best parts of running a business and the flexibility that came with. But also because I was then allowed to live a much happier life. I wasn't working every single hour under the sun. I wasn't sacrificing my own well-being and my own energy to fuel the business. I was prioritizing myself. I was prioritizing my creativity. I was looking after the main part of the business, and that allowed the rest of the business to thrive. And if you are finding that you are a person who wants to take a little bit more time off, who wants a little bit more space, who wants your business to feel much more peaceful, and struggle to create that priority for yourself over things like your client work and working on the business, I really want you to consider that actually when you do that, when you put yourself first, when you feel better and pour into your own cup, the more you can give back to your business and the more that you can be your best creative self in the business as well. Number 2 is a really good one for those of us who are real productivity people. I love being productive. I love being ambitious. I am an incredibly ambitious person. I'm also a total perfectionist, which means that I have these great goals that I am so excited to reach, and I want to get to them as quickly as possible because I'm ambitious, but I also want to do them in a very specific way. And the lesson that I have learned here is I don't have to do the whole thing, I just have to do the next thing. And by that, I mean that with every huge goal, with every huge task, it can always be broken down into its components. And where it's so easy for us to think, okay, I need to, for example, redo my entire website, instead of thinking of it that way, what has really helped me is to go, okay, I don't need to do the whole website. I just need to plan out this one page. And that becomes the next thing that I need to do. Similarly with marketing, I don't need to design an entire marketing plan. I just need to post this next post. If I ever find myself getting overwhelmed in projects, in kind of like the ambition of what I'm trying to achieve next and the goals that I'm working for, my thought process is always, okay, I don't need to do it all. I just need to do the next bit. And that allows me to bite off each of these pieces in smaller chunks, which actually inevitably makes me much more productive because it means that I can actually get those things completed and done instead of just feeling overwhelmed and getting stuck in that overwhelm as well. These lessons are so important to me because there are definitely parts of my personality and the way I'm made up that kind of make me not perfect to run a business, but it's only by embracing those things, embracing my perfectionism and my drive for ambition, whilst also paired with like my drive for more peace and more calm. It's only by embracing the things that I know are parts of me that have actually helped me move through those pieces. So the more I can plan around being a perfectionist, the more I can plan around being a people pleaser, the more I can actually factor those things into the business and make plans and set boundaries around them instead of just going, oh, I'm a perfectionist, so I can't get these things done. Again, going back to the first point, you are your business's greatest asset. So there's no point in building a business that doesn't work for you. Maybe that's a little sub lesson there. Okay, lesson 3 is I always want to keep learning. I want to get excited by learning new things and by trying different things, but not every piece of advice is designed for me. That is a really important one, especially in this day of everyone having their own advice, everyone having their own opinions, me included, me sharing my opinions, me sharing my advice. It's so important for us as the creatives, as the root of the business, as the decision maker, to be discerning of the advice that we actually process, that we actually take in, and really considering when we see something that hits a nerve, Is that because it's something that we want to be doing, or is it something that we actually don't want to do and is not part of the business that we want to run? Because either way, that's okay. It's okay for you to strive to try new things, or to take on some feedback, or to see something and be inspired by something that you can then go and try. But where advice and where comparison can really bite us and have a negative impact on the business is when we are seeing advice that's actually not suitable for us, because it's not a goal that we want to reach, or it's not a business that we want to run, or it doesn't make sense for our business model, and we take that on as advice that we need to follow, instead of thinking, that's good advice, but that's not going to work for me. This has been one of the most crucial lessons that I have learned, and it is the main thing that has stopped me from being too concerned with comparison in my business. I remember early on, it was so easy to get shiny thing syndrome and see what other people were doing, listen to other people's advice and take all of it to heart. And the more I realised that building my business my way was the only way that I could make it work for me as a human being, that is how I then came to terms with understanding that no, not every piece of advice is made for me, and I can pick and choose what feels like a good fit, what does and doesn't work, even to the extent of when I've joined group programs in the past or when I've joined courses, I can be discerning over, yeah, I understand why that works, but either that doesn't work for me at all, or I can make it work for me in a different way. This is all part of that learning process, the experimentation, and finding yourself as a creative expert and as a business owner, instead of just letting your business be led by lots of different voices and lots of different opinions. And this is ultimately how I have built confidence in myself as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as well as a creative, and how you can as well. Okay, the next one is maybe a bit more of a recent thing that has become more relevant, but what I have found is trends will come and go, but talking to your people has to be consistent. And what I mean by this is that in marketing, there have always been different trends. So I have been running my business for 11, 12 years, and the whole time there is always a new thing to try. There's always a new trend to take part in. There is always something that we are told we absolutely have to do. Again, connecting back to that previous lesson. And it can feel like we have to follow those trends to reach our people. What I'm meaning by this lesson here is you can join in trends, you can, make reels, you can use trending audios, you can take part in new technology that appears, but the most important thing is that you are talking to the people who matter. So whether you do or don't take part in the trending marketing platform or type of content that you need to share, the most important thing is that you are talking to and connecting with your people. So if you find yourself stuck by, should I create reels with a hook and with trending audios, even though I don't really like making videos or talking to a camera, sometimes that can get us to the point where we are frozen in this state of, well, if I can't do it this particular way, I can't do it at all. And what I have really learned about this is, if I can get through that and just carry on talking to my people, it actually doesn't matter if I'm following trends or not. As long as I am consistently talking about my services, being visible, marketing my services in a way that I think showcases me in the best way, whether it's done using some sort of marketing fad, marketing trend, or whether it's just a bog standard post or photo or carousel, whatever the past it thing is now, none of that matters as long as I'm actually showing up and talking to the people that matter. The next lesson, I have truly lost count, apologies, it hasn't even been that many, but more opportunities and more growth will come when you feel calm and steady in your business. And really, this is the root of how I have built the strategy in my business, how I've built my business as a whole, and now how I teach other creatives to build calm, steady, consistent, and sustainable businesses. Because what I have found over and over again is that when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm stressed, when I feel like the business is unsteady or wobbling, I cannot use that ground. I cannot use that foundation to go on and try new things, to experiment, to reach new goals, to find the success that I really truly want and then work towards it, because I don't have anything backing me up. I'm spending all of my time trying to get clients, trying to build more consistency, trying to cut back on my workload so I can actually have some space to breathe. That is not an environment in which we can thrive and be inspired and grow and move forward. Having a business that doesn't have that steadiness built in, without that foundation, without the grounding that I have through a steady flow of client projects, I cannot focus on anything else. And I have found this time and time again when I have tried to launch new side projects or think about new income streams or try and reach a new type of client or even change just parts of the business that exist behind the scenes. I don't have the energy to do those things when all of my energy is taken up by the stress and overwhelm of the day-to-day of my business. So this is why now, as a mentor, as a coach, I always prioritize building this steadiness into the business, into the foundations first, not just for beginners, but for creatives who, like myself, have got to a great part in their business where everything feels great, everything looks great on the outside, but on the inside, it's not as steady or consistent as we need it to be. Foundations are never just for beginners. That steadiness that you can grow and you can build in the foundations is going to help you reach higher heights, bigger goals, and more success. Another one, coming back to the marketing, the next lesson is I don't have to have the loudest voice, but I do have to have a voice. There are always going to be people who can sell their services, talk about what they do, and be visible better than I can. Because I am not and have never been the person who can super naturally big myself up, talk about what I do, even to the extent of in my personal life, I'm always the person who is asking, what are you doing? What are you up to? How are you getting on? And when it comes to talking about myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, no worries. And that really reflects in the business, or it can do. And in the earlier years, I just found that even having any semblance of a voice was really difficult, but I always paid for it. If I didn't show up, if I didn't talk about what I do, if I didn't post on Instagram, if I didn't update my portfolio, I would learn that lesson and I would end up with quiet periods in my schedule. Whereas if I could find my voice in whatever way it came, even though it was never going to be that loudest voice, it was never going to be the bolshiest or the most confident, that meant I could still maintain and grow and scale my business, even though I was never going to be the loudest voice. And it comes back to that idea of we don't have to follow trends, we just have to show up, we just have to be visible. In the same way, we don't have to be the loudest, we don't have to shine the brightest, we just have to find a way to do things in a way that works for us. And that really worked for me, knowing that I never had to be the biggest person in the space. I never had to have the biggest business or, like I said, speak the loudest. I just needed to do enough and be enough and be more of myself to the point that I was actually booking people in. The more I allowed myself to sell and show up and be myself in my marketing in a way that maybe was a little bit quieter, in a way that maybe was a little bit more intentional and with more depth instead of the volume, the more I found that I can actually run a business that feels much easier in terms of the marketing, because I get to be myself. I don't have to push more, I don't have to be louder. And that was such an incredible comfort for me in those earlier years of my business. It really meant that I could embrace being who I was and build confidence in myself as a bit more of an introvert and a bit more of a quieter voice, and still have the business that I really wanted to have. The next point is one that I really, really love, because I always talk to people about finding ease in running a business, because Running a business is not an easy thing to do. It is not the smallest challenge I've ever taken on. It has probably been my biggest ever project. It has been the thing that I have put the most energy into, the most time into. Even now I'm a mother. My business has always been that first baby that I put so much energy into and so much time into. And what I really learned is the way that it becomes easier, the way that you build that ease into the business is by actually designing it into the business and not just expecting it to come along. So the lesson is that ease is designed and not earned or not found. We really need to be intentional with what ease looks like to us as people, because it's going to look different to everyone, and how we actually build that into the business, into the strategy, so you can find that ease without waiting for it to come along, without deciding that, okay, well, when I'm a decade into the business, everything is just going to feel easy. Because if earlier on in my business, I had just allowed myself to continue feeling stressed, to just let things carry on as they were, my business would not feel easier right now. But instead, what I did was try and take control of that situation, like notice that actually I'm feeling really stressed right now. I don't like the way that this feels and I want things to be different. So I have to make them different. And that is how I started to, redesign my offers so they had a little bit more space around them, be a little bit more intentional about the clients I was taking on so the projects felt a little bit easier, design my time and my schedule to create a little bit more space for myself so I wasn't packing everything into these really tight timelines. All of these decisions that I made that eventually made the business easier were all super, super intentional, and they were built into the strategy. They weren't just things that came along because I had been doing this for a certain amount of time. And so if you are finding that you are a little bit later on in your business and you felt like things were going to be easier and more spacious and stress-free and calm at this point, but they're not, it's not anything that you are doing wrong. It's just that it's not been designed into the business, and that is something that is definitely possible to do. And actually tacked onto this, the easier things feel, the more you will enjoy them. Even the things that you thought you wouldn't enjoy. Yes, I'm talking about marketing. Yes, I'm talking about working through the tricky stages in your projects and dealing with bad feedback and all of those things. Everything feels easier when you try to enjoy it. And the more that you enjoy being in your business, the more and more easy it feels. So the more ease you will find through that enjoyment, and it all compounds together to actually be a business that you really, really love, because deep down, we all love our businesses. It's one of the reasons that we probably started the business in the first place, was to do a thing that we loved. I know that's why I started the business. But the lack of ease, like how hard it can be, really, really makes it difficult and makes it much less enjoyable. Whereas if we can find those sparks of like how you can make yourself enjoy your marketing, how you can make yourself enjoy working through projects, and again, coming back to how you design that into the business, it will then feel exponentially easier as you move forward too. Okay, the next one, if anyone has worked with me as a mentor or a coach, you will already know this. But the next lesson is there are always bigger reasons for your small problems. And by small problems, I am definitely not being dismissive. These things do not feel small in the moment. I know that. When clients are refusing to follow your processes, when you find yourself constantly scrambling because projects are running over, when your marketing isn't quite reaching the people that you want it to reach, all of these things will always, always, always come back to a bigger reason. It's because the offer isn't designed properly. It's because your booking system isn't working. It's because you're working to a profile of your potential clients that doesn't work for you anymore. Often these things come back to the strategy of the business and things that have either been left in the past or have not been intentionally designed to really work for you as a person. I am always thinking about these bigger reasons outside of where these kind of like in the moment or day-to-day issues come from. And if I am finding that I'm having recurring problems, whether it's in my projects or I can't get around to doing my marketing or something in my offers isn't quite working, The only thing that's really going to solve those things is going back into the root of where it's coming from instead of dismissing it as a day-to-day issue, which I think is so easy to do. It's so easy to go, oh no, this is just a small problem, I don't have to worry about it. But what I really like to do is do some journaling or almost like trace back what could be causing this sort of problem, you know, whether it's in the processes, whether it's in the offer, whether it's in the types of people that I'm working with or my marketing, and dive really deep into, okay, well, is this the problem or is there a much bigger thing creating this problem? And most of the time, what I will identify is some sort of like strategic or foundational issue that when I, you know, switch things around or like try something different or maybe experiment a little bit, I can actually save some of the daily stresses, some of the daily issues, or even like the weekly or project-based issues that come up over and over again with a piece of the business that I had previously overlooked. Running a business is never this like set it and forget it sort of system. We want it to be evolving with who we are as people and how we want to spend our time and how we want to live our lives, all of these things. And so it becomes so important to really like deep dive the issues that we're finding and make sure that we can fix them as they crop up. Okay, one final peaceful lesson from my over a decade in business and 100 podcast episodes is that I straight up refuse to feel bad about having priorities outside of my business. I don't know why this has become more and more controversial over the years. I feel like we got through girl boss era and for some reason are coming back into it. But the reason I want the peace in my business, the reason I want a business in the first place is so I can enjoy my life more. It's so I can fuel and live the life that I really want to live. It's so I can spend more time with my family, with my son, with my friends. It's so I can have more time for my hobbies, for the things that I love doing outside of my original hobby, which then turned into my job. I don't think people who work 9 to 5s are ever shamed for not working as much as physically possible or putting as much into the business as physically possible. But I really do think that even if it's not coming from an external place, I think we can really shame ourselves into feeling like we have to put as much energy as we possibly can into our business. And I am done with feeling like that's the case. And the more I have come to this conclusion, the more I have allowed myself to live a life outside of the business, to not make my business a priority in certain parts of my life, and to give myself times where I'm completely switched off from thinking about the business, the more I've actually been able to put that energy and put the time back into the business, kind of like what I said before. And I know there are societal things, there are pressures that we find from elsewhere. When we are trying to make something work that is entirely self-motivated, it can be hard to not feel like you have to put as much motivation and as much energy and as much time into that thing as possible, especially when it doesn't feel like it's not working, and especially when you're trying to get that thing to grow and turn into something else. But it's so important that we are really focusing on the reason that we started the business in the first place, because I know so many of us started our business to do something that we really love, but also to have flexibility and to have more time and to be in control of our finances and the space that we have and the way that we live our lives. And so often I found myself in the past sacrificing that time and sacrificing that space and sacrificing that energy to pour into a business that couldn't give back to me because I was using all of my energy in the business instead of outside of it. And so no longer will I feel guilty about wanting to take a day off so I can sit and do nothing instead of working through a project that I need to get finished. And also because of that, I really want to design a business that lets me do those things, that gives me the space to live my life and explore and never have to work an evening or a weekend and never feel burdened or stressed by the job, the business that I've built. I am so grateful for what I've been able to achieve and what I've been able to build in the business. And because I've got to that point, because I feel like I've put enough into the business so far, not that this is something you have to do first, like you can build more peace at any stage, but I know I've given enough to really take back. And I feel like now I almost look at my business as like an entity that we have this like symbiotic relationship where I give the business what it needs, the business gives me what I need back, and we have a very great kind of like fluid relationship in that way. So I never have to sacrifice myself, my well-being, my time, going back to one of the earlier lessons, to fuel the business, and it's always going to be there to give back to me as well. I hope you have enjoyed these lessons. I actually lost count. I hope it was 10, but we will see. In the title, if it doesn't say 10 lessons, then I've messed up somewhere. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If there's anything you want to have a chat about, you can always drop me a message over on Instagram at Gatto Creative Mentor. You can subscribe over on YouTube or follow the podcast wherever you want to listen to your podcast. It is the Peaceful Creatives Podcast. And if anything has popped up in this episode, even one tiny piece that has felt like a bit of a spark, I really hope you take that and run with it, because even a tiny little bit of extra piece built into a business can really transform how we live day to day, how we feel in the business, and how we see our business as an asset and a tool to get to the life that we really want to live as well. So if there's anything that you have taken here, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know, and I'll be back soon with another episode.